Hello everyone, and welcome back to another great episode of the Black Marriage Effect podcast, where we discuss black love, marriage and relationships. I'm here to help you guys find peace, love and harmony in your marriage. I'm your host Nancy, and today we're going to discuss tips on what to do before you get married. We're also going to discuss what the 3 C's are, which are compatibility, commitment and competency. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so let's start off with some UK statistics. I think it's important because it allows us to know what's going on within the UK, within black homes. So 31.7% of black households were made up of one person. This is really important to know because, you know, we've got that long way to go before it gets to a greater number of marriage, which is essentially where we want to get to. 24.3% were single parent families, and you know, this could be under any circumstance, whether it be divorce, whether it be absent parent. You know, things happen, which is sad, but we really want to try and reduce that number as much as possible. And finally, 21.6% were married couples or civil partners. I mean, this number is quite low. We really want to see this number rise. We really want to see more black married couples within the UK, because it's just so beautiful to see. Like, black love is beautiful, it's amazing. Let's see more of it. You know, let's see more of our friends getting married. Let's see more of, you know, older generations getting married, the ones that are single. I think it's so important to focus on this because within the UK, obviously there are 60 million people and it's such a small number for that amount. So yeah, let's keep it going. Okay, so self-development is definitely key before you get married. I feel like it's way more better to self-develop as much as possible before you get married than to try and cram everything, you know, when you're married, because then you can avoid so many mishaps. So judgment is not the way. If you feel like you want to comment on something and you may not know that you're being judgmental, try and assess how the person feels when you say something, and how they're accepting of information. You know, there's been times where I've said things to my friends and it's not being vindictive at all. I could even be trying to give them advice, but it could be coming off judgmental. So when you have your partner and you're trying to, you know, tell them something or give them information, just be careful of how you say things. Try not to judge as best as possible. If you're genuinely not a judgmental person, it can come across as that. So just be careful. Shouting and arguments. Now this one can definitely be avoided. Shouting is something that, you know, me and my husband decided that we weren't going to do, you know, before we got married, because we just felt like, why shout? Like, why shout? We're adults. We can have a constructive disagreement or conversation without it getting heated and without shouting and without having arguments. So let your partner be who they are, and acceptance is such an amazing thing. And I feel like if you work on accepting yourself firstly and who you are, you can definitely do this for your partner. Like, excuse me, acceptance is so important, because if you feel like you're with someone that doesn't accept you, they start to resent you, and that's not good for any marriage or any relationship. So I feel like accept your partner for who they are as much as possible, because the same way you accept them is the same way you would want them to accept you. So you're always responsible for your own peace, your own happiness, you know, your own everything really, because if you give it to yourself first, you won't expect it from anyone else. And when you get it from your partner, it's an extra added bonus. You won't look for things in that person for them to do and to fulfill for you. That's really your job. Let me just tell you now. I remember when I decided years ago that I would stop placing my happiness in my partner, because that means that every little thing that he did would annoy me. Like, it would just annoy me. It could even be like, just after I've washed the dishes, leaving one dish in the sink, I think, why can you not just wash the dish after I've just, do you know what I mean? Just little petty things. And if you allow that to bother you, you'll just literally spend your day being unhappy. It's just not the way forward at all. So always be responsible for your own happiness, your own emotions and your own thoughts as well. Be accountable for your actions. because at the end of the day, we're all adults. We should all be able to control or have, you know, even if we're feeling away, be accountable for your actions, because if something goes wrong, no one really forced you to act in a certain type of way. So you have to, if you know that, you know, you have violent tendencies, and if you get into a heated argument, you may want to, you know, be violent towards your partner, just know that you were responsible for that. No matter what your partner said, no matter what they did, at the end of the day, it was you that made that action, so you will be responsible for it, and you need to hold yourself accountable. So next we're going to go on to the 3 C's, which are compatibility, commitment, and competency. The first one is compatibility, and this one is so important because even though the movies show us, you know, oh, love, 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 it's all about love. And to be honest, obviously love don't pay the bills and all of that, but there's more to it than love. If 2 people simply don't like the same things, that could be a massive problem. So compatibility means a state in which 2 things are able to exist or occur together without problems or conflict. Let me say that again, without problems or conflict. So 2 people could like total opposite things, but as long as there's no problems or no conflict, essentially they're compatible. So for example, timeliness and punctuality. And I know they're always like, oh, black people are always late. Guys, let's try and stop this notion of black people being late to everything. It's not a good look. It's not professional. It's not courteous. Let's try and stop it. And I know, you know, things happen, but let's try as much as possible to be able to get to places on time. And I know as well, for a lot of men, they don't like being places late. All the important men in my family, my husband, my dad, my brother-in-law, my brother-in-law and my brother as well, none of them like being late. So it's funny how all the important men in my life, they all have that same pattern of being punctual and, you know, wanting to be on time at places. So if women, please you know, I know we gotta look good. That's, you know, that one, hands down, we have to. So if you know your makeup takes 2 hours, you're getting ready 2 hours, whatever, put in that time. You know, tell your husband, I'm gonna take a while, what time do we need to leave? Please be patient, bear with me, because it's not a good look. Your husband will get agitated, they won't want to go. You may miss a really important event that you've committed yourself to, but because you're late, you show up, you embarrass your husband. It's just not a good look. Cleanliness and orderliness for me was a massive one. I like things tidy in a specific way. And it's a thing whereby you have to kind of, when you're married, you really have to understand the other person when it comes to what is your priority. So for example, cleanliness and orderliness, I had to really, you know, get used to the way my husband did things, and he had to get used to the way I did things. And over the years, he really did, you know, make effort and try to, you know, do more things around the house, do more chores around the house. And it made a big difference. Like, it definitely helped. And even with me as well, there are times where, you know, I'd leave things on the bed and it'll be annoying. So just making sure it'll be like a clean bed, but then you put one item on it and it ruin the whole thing. Like, just certain things like that, just keep an eye on it, because it could really rub people the wrong way. Money and spending is such a big one, guys, because if you have debt, or if you know, if you're somebody that's not good at managing money, this could be an issue going into marriage. You should really sit down with your partner and talk to them about what your money issues are, what your spending is like. If you think you're good with money, if you don't think you're good with money, and be open, be honest. I know it can be quite embarrassing maybe for some people, and you feel vulnerable, you know. But I feel like if you're open with your partner and they see your vulnerability, they will not take it for granted. They will know that you're really trying, you're really making an effort, and you really want this to work. So if you're not great with money or spending, speak about it. Speak about, you know, spending habits and things like that. So, because that stuff is important. Obviously, even things like student debt, I'm sure most of us have student debt. So definitely speak about things like that. Sex and intimacy, again, is another important one. Speak about this, because in marriage, sex is so important. So if you don't speak about it before, you're not going to know what to expect going into it. There are some things that you may or may not want to do, vice versa with your partner. So make sure you get to know what both of you like. Life priorities are important because you need to know what, are on your top list. What am I saying? You need to know the top things in each other's list in order to be able to support the person, know what the person's thinking, where they're at in life. And even most important is, as I just said, so that they can support you, and so they're not thinking, oh, when did they decide that they want to do this? It doesn't fit into what our construct is for marriage and our relationship. Spirituality and religion also is important, because I know people that both of them are two different religions, but they make it work. And I think it's beautiful, because you don't have to necessarily have the same everything as your partner, but as long as you can work it out, you can work it out, make it happen, but also as long as it fits in with both of you, it is definitely important. And I think that one is a good one, because if you have kids later on down the line, it's essentially up to the parents what spirituality or religion they will follow. So it's important to speak about it, to know what their religious status is going forward. On to the next one, commitment. Now this one, if you're not committed, you shouldn't even be in a relationship, in all honesty, because the definition of commitment is to be willing to do whatever it takes. Let me say that again. The ability to do whatever it takes to make the marriage work. And that means there are going to be many times when you're just going to not get your way, and you're going to have to be okay with it. You're going to have to accept a lot of things, because that's part of maturity, that's part of growing, that's part of accepting the person for who they are. Obviously, there are definitely circumstances. I'm not saying be committed to abuse, or being committed to being put down, or being committed to, being in a violent relationship or situation. However, there are definitely things that a lot of women don't take, and I understand. It is hard being in a relationship and a marriage. I'm not saying just accept whatever and lay there and take it all from a man. No, that's definitely what I'm saying. But you have to work through these things. You have to literally do whatever it takes, essentially, to keep your marriage together, because marriage it's not a game. It's not easy. It's hard. It is work. So if you want your marriage to have longevity and to last, you have to work at it and try your best as possible to work on yourself, as I said in the previous slides, because all these things that you do, self-growth, will allow you to work through these difficult situations and to have the ability to do whatever it takes, so to speak. So every commitment is a choice. Just know that when you get yourself into a relationship, you made that choice to be with that man. You made that choice to be with that woman. Don't get into the relationship and be like, oh, something bad will happen, you break up and be like, oh, he was a narcissist, oh, he was this, oh, he was that. At the end of the day, you probably didn't do your groundwork before you committed yourself to that person, or maybe you missed the red flags, who knows. However, this is the relationship that you committed yourself to. This is the man you committed yourself to. And if you didn't want to accept everything about him, then essentially that was up to you. That's something that you need to think about and assess going forward in your future relationships. Every commitment requires personal responsibility, which is so important, because at the end of the day, as I just said, it was you that got into it. It's not anybody else's fault, so to speak. And I know obviously other people, they do things to hurt people. That's not what I'm saying either. My thing is, hold yourself accountable, be responsible, try and be as mature as possible in the situation. And it also requires honesty and integrity as well. And honesty is so important, because at the end of the day, people don't always like to show them their true selves, and I understand, because people don't want to be taken for granted. And I know there's this whole notion as well, oh, I don't want to be completely me, I don't want to show the whole I don't want to show my whole self, because I don't want the person to take advantage. And I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to get yourself into a marriage, you have to learn to be open and honest. Don't lie. There's no point of lying or not telling the whole truth, because then essentially that person is not getting the whole of you. They don't essentially know who you are, and then they'll just be getting fragments, little pieces. And when you're in a marriage with someone, you essentially share the whole of you with that person. So it is very important. And also, last but definitely not least, commitment is a promise. It's a promise. When you get married, you take vows. Those vows are essentially not to be broken. So you just have to remember that it's a promise. You've got to do everything in your power to make it work. If you love the person enough to accept that person for who they are, you should be committed to working on it and doing whatever it takes. Competency. Now, competency ties all of this together, because if you don't have the ability to do something successfully or efficiently, there's just no competency behind it. It won't work. Things will fall apart. Things won't stay together. You have to show up every day. And I know it's hard. We go through things, you know, people have feelings. It's hard to stay on top of it, but try as much as possible to show up every day. Like, show up and shout. Try and go over above and beyond. So even if you do kind of miss the mark, you're still at a good space. Responsible people show up when they're expected. So if you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to pick your partner up from work, show up on time, be there. Don't be that person that's always, oh, I'm late, or always coming up with excuses. It's just not a good look. That just doesn't show that you can do something successfully and, most importantly, efficiently. Like, do things properly. Don't do things half-hearted. And also keep improving. Try and get better. I think for me, self-growth is so important, to grow, to expand your mind. You know, I think for me, improvement is so important. Like, from the time I got married and now, it's kind of a thing whereby I knew I had to keep working on it. Like, I know marriage is just a non-stop thing, even though all the things that I've mentioned previously you work on prior to when you get married, but even when you get married, you have to keep improving. And I feel like that's why mine and my husband's marriage, it gets better, and I love the fact that we're able to grow and blossom because we work on it. And the same way we work on it, the same way you guys can work on it. There's so many resources out there to help you. There's books, there's Audible, you know, if you're not someone that loves to read books, there's so many books on marriage and love that people can use. There's YouTube, there's the internet. Speak to people as well. Ask someone, you know, how did you improve in your marriage, and see what you could take for that. People that you know have been together for a long time. Try and get as much information as possible to be able to have a successful marriage. Follow through with excellence, because if you don't, things will just be so wishy-washy. Things will just be wishy-washy. They won't be their best that they could be. Do you get what I'm saying? So accomplish more than expected. So this one is important as well, because when you do this, it allows people to see, you know, the better side of you, and people always like hold you at high. They always see you at a high standard, and that's such a good thing, because they know that they can rely on you. They know that, you know, you're someone that can accomplish, especially if you commit yourself to something. And lastly, inspire others. I think for me, this one hits home a lot, because for my husband, he is such an inspiration. Like, for anyone that knows my husband, he is such an inspiration. He's inspired me to do a lot of things. He inspired me a lot to even do this podcast and sit here to talk to you guys. Do you get what I'm saying? So inspiration is so important. Be the best you can be. Be the change that you want to be as well. Okay, so moving on to top 10 things to discuss before marriage. Here are the first 5. Now, guys, the reason why I've chosen to give you guys tips on the top 10 things to discuss before marriage is because, speaking to a lot of men and women, I find that, like, people don't discuss certain things, and it's weird. Like, simple little things like, do you want kids, or where do you see yourself in 5 years, or even just personality things. And I feel like, because love is such a thing that can, let me just say, love can blind people. Yeah, they can blind. They don't see things. They miss the red flag. They forget, like, they get caught up in, you know, the airy-fairy notion of love. Oh yeah, you know, he loves me, I love him, whatever. The whole nice, the feelings and the tingles that they get. They forget to discuss certain things. So, for example, like money, where do we stand? How much money do you want to make? How ambitious are you? You know, are you somebody that